Now, when decimal numbers are used, there may be some that have different number of decimal places or a different number of decimal places. What we're going to do is, if we want to create them to be the same so we can kind of understand a little better, we're going to add zeros to the end of the smaller numbers to create the same number of decimal places when placing on a number line. Okay, so it just kind of helps us to recognize where exactly our numbers are and just make it maybe a little bit easier to place them exactly on the number line. So you'll notice here we have from 2.3, so one decimal place, all the way up to 3 decimal places. So if we were to add a couple decimal places to each one, that'll be zeros, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. You kind of think of it that way. It's not necessarily the right terminology to think of that way. It's still 0.100 or 0.200, but we can think of it as zeros, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. And then if we change our numbers, so this becomes 2.300, 2.030, 2.450, and 2.014. We can see that now they're all with 3 decimal places. It might help to make it a little bit easier to place them. Something like 2.30 is actually right on this line right here. Okay, and this is 2.3. Now we're just going to leave them as the originals. Okay, even when we get into fractions, so there will be some fractional ones as well. Okay, when we get into fractions, we're going to leave it, we want to put the fraction on here. Even if we change it to a decimal to like figure out where it goes and find where it goes on the number line, we always want to place the final answer as the original. So here it was 2.3, going to leave it as 2.3, not change it to 2.300. Even though it doesn't change the number, but we still want to keep it to be exactly the same. All right, 2.03. Now 30, think of it as 30 is between 0 and 100, and it's roughly about a third of the way, so roughly about there. Okay, so this is 2.03. 2.45, well, 2.4 is here. This is 450. 450 is right between 400 and 500, so we're going to try to do right in the middle, and this is going to be 2.45. And finally, 2.014. Well, that is between 0 and 100, and it's a lot closer to 0. And so I'm actually going to put it on the bottom so that I'm not disrupting that one. 2.014. So you'll notice here I've done on the bottom, and it's okay. We can do it on top and bottom as long as we are accurately showing where it is. And we can squeeze it in on top as well if that works better for you. You can just angle things off a little bit and determine kind of where they're at. All right, so let's do a few more examples. Some will be maybe a little simpler, some maybe a little more difficult. The first one here, let's place and order each rational number on the line. Well, here we're going from negative 20 to positive 20. Negative 6 is going to be at 2, 4, 6 right here. Okay, now again, remember, we don't need to write in the numbers, but we need to know how much we're going up by. In this case, we're going up by 2's. Okay, so this is negative 2, negative 4, and negative 6. 15 is going to be at 12, 14, right between 14 and 16. Okay, so there's 15. So remember, this is 12, 14, 16. It's going to be right in between. Again, we don't need to write in those numbers, okay, but you can if you'd like to. Negative 12 is going to be right here, negative 12, and positive 7 will be at 2, 4, 6, and that is 7 right there. Again, the distance in between is variable, and that's okay. The important thing is that we have it accurately on a number line, which is spaced out properly. So every 2 we have a line, and they're all exactly the same distance apart. I'd like you to try to do that as best as possible. I realize that when we draw things out freehand, it might not be exact, but try to do your best as possible there. All right, let's look at some decimals here. Now again, we're going from negative 10 to positive 10 because we have some negatives and positives. Okay, I'm trying to keep it roughly symmetrical here. Negative 5.5. Well, we have negative 5 here. Halfway between negative 5 and negative 6 is negative 5.5. And now remember, we're going up by 1s here, so it's important to remember what we're going up by. When I give you a number line, I will show you some of them. I will not show you all, and so it's important to remember what we're going up by. 9.3. Well, 9 is here, 10 is there. 9.3 would be roughly somewhere between 9 and 10. And again, try to get as close as you can. It doesn't have to be exact, but it should be close. 2.6, 1, 2, and that's 3. Now it's a little bit above half, so I'm going to try to represent that it's a little above half. And there's our 2.6. And negative 1.1 is going to be right beside negative 1. just like that. Okay. Now I could have made the number line a little shorter. I decided to make it symmetrical there, but you can kind of choose how big you want to make your number line when you draw them out yourself. All right, let's add some bigger decimals in there. Okay, here we have 2.4, sorry, these are negatives, negative 2.403, negative 2.317, negative 2.370, and negative 2.400. Well, here we're kind of adding in an extra decimal place, so we have 3 decimal places on each. Just like that. Okay. And negative 2.403, well, that's 403 is going to be kind of really close to 400, but just below. So we've got to make sure that we show that it is just below negative 2.403. Negative 2.317, well, 317 is kind of between 350 and 300, and a little bit closer to 300, so we're going to put that right about there. Again, that might be very accurate, that might be a little bit off, but we try to make it as close as we can. Negative 2.370 will be right about here. Negative 2.37, again, we don't need to put that extra 0 in there, and negative 2.4 is pretty accurate. That one's going to be right on there, negative 2.4. Okay, now again, they're very close, so I'm putting one on top and one on the bottom. You can choose to do that. You could choose to kind of do arrows and then kind of split it up a little bit if you'd like to. Either one is going to work. All right, next question here, number 4. Okay, here we have fractions. Now with fractions, okay, when we're ordering on a number line, I'm okay if you use a calculator for that. Okay, so here I've gotten we're going from 0 to 1, and so we know that each one is a quarter. Okay, so we have a quarter, 2 quarters, same as 1/2, and 3 quarters, so that might help us out a little bit. And when we place our numbers on there, okay, we want to again try to make them as accurate as possible. You might want to use a calculator for that. And I'm just going to put my calculator off to this side. Okay, I think you can see it. 2 divided by 3 is 0.666 repeated. Well, this is 0.5. Okay, and I'm actually going to put the decimals on there as well, even though we don't need them. It can sometimes help. Okay, 0.666 repeated is going to be pretty close to, it's going to be right about here. So this right here is not 0.66 repeated, but 2/3. Okay, so we're going to write it out as the fraction. 4 over 5. 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. And so that one is a little bit above 0.75 here. So we're going to put that one right here. 4 over 5. 1/2, that one is already given right there. So that's 1/2. And 6 over 11, 6 divided by 11 is 0.545454 repeated. Again, a little bit above 0.5, but not quite at 0.6, so we're going to put that in right over here, and this is 6 over 11. Now these are pretty squished together. We could have done a smaller number line, of course, but this just gives us an idea of kind of where it fits between 0 and 1. All right, and last one here now. Here we're going to have some improper fractions. Okay, and I've got a number line from 1 to 5. That means that this is 2, and this is 4, and that's 1/2, 2.5, 3.5, and 4.5. Okay, 7 over 2. 7 divided by 2 is the same as 3.5. 3.5 is right here. Again, remember, we're writing it out as a fraction. Okay, so as was the value given right here, 7 over 2. 10 divided by 3 is our next one, 3.3 repeated, which would be right about here. Those two actually are very close together, but you'll notice that 7 over 2 is bigger than 10 over 3. 4 is given right there, so that one we can just put right in there. Okay, there's a line for it. And 13 over 5 is 2.6. That was 2.5, so we're going to go a little bit above 2.5, and this will be 13 over 5. And that is finishing them up there. Okay, so those are our number lines. Remember, when you're drawing out your number lines, please draw them in a straight line with a ruler if possible. Try to keep all of your spacings as close to accurate as possible. If you have graph paper, it's easier. If you're using a ruler, it's even easier as well. And I want you to work on questions 3 to 8. Okay, it's a bit of a bigger section. It's the last section of it. Okay, try to, or put all of your values, make sure you're showing all your number lines throughout that assignment.